In a world obsessed with Apple, one man gave them the future, and they erased his name from history. He built the original brain behind Siri, only to be kicked out of the company he founded. Forgotten. Betrayed. Silenced. But this wasn't the end of his story, it was the beginning of a digital war. This is the untold story of Dag Kittlaus, the man who created Siri, lost it all, and came back to shake Silicon Valley. Dag Kittlaus wasn't a household name. He wasn't a billionaire like Elon Musk, or a flashy CEO like Steve Jobs. But in the quiet halls of Stanford Research Institute, he was the mind behind the magic. In the early 2000s, Dag had a vision. Not just for an app, but for a voice-controlled digital assistant that could talk, think, and respond like a human. It wasn't science fiction. It was real. And he called it Siri. He co-founded a startup with engineers from SRI's AI lab, building what was then the most advanced consumer artificial intelligence ever conceived. Siri wasn't just an app, it was a revolution in your pocket. Just as Siri was about to launch, Apple came knocking. It was 2010. Steve Jobs saw what Siri could be, not just the feature, but the future of the iPhone. Apple offered a deal too big to ignore. Dag and his team sold Siri to Apple. It should have been a dream come true. But what happened next felt like a nightmare. Once Siri was inside Apple, something changed. The vision Dag had, a truly open, conversational, evolving AI, was locked down. Apple stripped Siri of its advanced features. The AI was reworked to be simpler, dumber, and controllable. Then came the final blow. Months after the acquisition, Dag was quietly pushed out of the company. No press release. No thank you. No credit. He was erased from the narrative. The man who created Siri no longer existed in Apple's story. The voice of the iPhone no longer had a voice of its own. For most people, this would be the end. Millions in the bank, sure. But also millions of dreams shattered. But Dag, he wasn't done. Behind closed doors, in hushed meetings and quiet phone calls, he began rebuilding. Not a new app. Not a new company. A weapon. An AI that would make Siri look like a toy. Coming, they thought they had silenced him. But what Dag was about to build would terrify even Google. He called it Viv. And this time, he wasn't selling out. He was going to take on the entire tech world on his own terms. But first, he had to gather the team. When Apple erased him, they thought he'd disappear. But instead, he went underground. And what he built next made Siri look like a toy. This is the comeback story of Dag Kittlaus, the father of voice AI, and how he created Viv, the digital brain that scared Silicon Valley. After being ousted from Apple, Dag Kittlaus could have retired. He had millions in the bank, the tech world's respect, and a long list of offers. But none of that mattered. What haunted him was this: Siri was broken. The dream he built, an AI that could understand you, grow with you, and speak back like a human, had been gutted. Apple turned it into a glorified voice command tool. Call more. Set alarm. It was a shadow of its original purpose. Dag felt it deeply. So he did the unthinkable. He started again from zero. He reached out to his old co-founders, the engineers who helped him build Siri before Apple bought it. One by one, they returned. Chris Brigham, Adam Che, Tom Gruber. Brilliant minds. Scarred by betrayal. Hungry for revenge. Together, they weren't building a company. They were building a revolution. And they gave it a name, Viv, short for Vivian, Latin for life. Viv wouldn't be controlled by a $1 trillion walled garden. It would be open source, decentralized, and infinitely smarter. While Siri could answer pre-coded questions, Viv would think, reason, and even write its own code in real time. In short, Siri followed rules. Viv would rewrite them. By 2016, Viv was nearly ready. In a closed demo that stunned the tech elite, Dag's team asked Viv, will it be warmer than 70 degrees near the Golden Gate Bridge after 5 p.m. the day after tomorrow? Viv didn't just answer, she reasoned, searched across APIs, and generated new code on the fly to respond with layered, dynamic intelligence. The room went silent. AIs weren't supposed to do that. Not yet. What Dag and his team had created was alive. The demo leaked. Suddenly, the world's biggest tech companies began circling Viv like sharks. Google wanted it. Facebook wanted it. Even Apple, yes, the same company that erased Dag, reached out quietly. But it was Samsung that made the boldest move. Desperate to compete with Apple's ecosystem and Google's assistant, Samsung offered a massive acquisition deal, not to silence Viv, but to unleash it. And Dag. He didn't forget what happened the last time he sold out. This time, the deal was different. Viv would remain independent. No lockdowns. No code rewrites. No betrayal. It was the beginning of a new AI arms race. In 2017, Samsung launched Bixby, Viv's commercial face, though in truth, the core of Viv was still growing, still adapting. While Siri and Alexa gave robotic, predictable answers, Viv was evolving in the background, learning, connecting apps, generating solutions. Viv was designed to be the brain of everything, from your phone to your fridge to your car. The future Dag dreamed of. It was finally happening. But with that power, came a new threat. Because the world had changed. AI was no longer about convenience. It was about control, and the biggest players weren't playing fair anymore. OpenAI, Google DeepMind, Meta AI, and soon, Amazon's secret AI division. All wanted dominance. And Dag. He was right in the middle of it. They erased his name. Took his invention. Made billions from his vision. But Dag Kittlaus didn't just get even, he launched an AI arms race so powerful, it changed the world. By 2018, Viv was embedded into Samsung smart devices. Phones, TVs, refrigerators, all connected by a voice that was getting smarter, more intuitive, more human. Dag had done it. He had brought his vision to life. But something was off. Samsung, like every tech giant, had its own ideas. They renamed Viv's interface. Hid some of its autonomy. And slowly, the same corporate claws that took Siri were reaching for Viv. Dag saw the writing on the wall. Around the same time, another player exploded onto the scene, OpenAI. Their language model, GPT-3, stunned the world. Unlike Viv, it didn't just process voice, it generated thought-like responses from billions of data points. Suddenly, Viv wasn't the smartest voice in the room anymore. The AI war had entered its next phase. It wasn't just about answering your questions. It was about understanding you better than you understood yourself. And once again, Dag was watching his own dream get hijacked by newer, flashier players. In 2021, Dag quietly stepped away from Samsung and Viv Labs. No press conference. No viral headlines. But this time, he didn't feel erased. He had started something bigger than himself. Siri. Viv, the idea of conversational AI, it was everywhere. He ignited the fire the whole world was now racing to control. And maybe that was enough. But others, they are still chasing power. Apple continues to reshape Siri. Google pushes Gemini. OpenAI's GPT-4 is shaping economies. And Meta. They are whispering about something called Llama 3. Yet in every AI, in every voice assistant, in every talking machine, there's a trace of Dag's DNA. The world speaks through his legacy. Dag Kittlaus may never trend on Twitter. He may never be in Forbes' top billionaire list. But Siri, Viv, the entire voice assistant revolution, that was him. They stole his name, but not his impact. He's the forgotten father of modern AI, and maybe the most important tech mind you've never heard of. He didn't build the loudest AI, or the richest AI, but he built the first AI that truly listened. Dag Kittlaus. The real voice behind Siri. He turned pain into purpose, and vision into victory. Now ask yourself, what's stopping you? If you love real stories of grit, failure, and billion-dollar breakthroughs. Hit subscribe and join us on the next journey.